My grandmother's favorite cold weather dessert has always been a warm, generously spiced gingerbread cake fresh out of the oven with a pour of heavy cream over top. So today we are going to make, in her honor, a super easy but very generously spiced warm gingerbread cake with creme anglaise. So we're just amping it up ever so slightly for the holidays. And I am just going to say that even though it involves some butter and some sugar and some nice things like that, because of all the spice, it really makes me feel, it feels like a healing cake. It's like the sweet version of chicken noodle soup. And not just because it's my grandmother's favorite dessert for this time of year. It is gorgeous, hot out of the oven, but it's also a really excellent cake to just keep as like a snacking cake to have with tea or eggnog, coffee, something stiffer. It really holds onto its moisture beautifully and stays fresh nicely for a couple days on the counter. So let's make it. So I'm gonna grab 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm just in here fluffing it up a little bit just so it's not overly settled. And then in here I'll scoop out my first cup and just give it a level top off, and my second. And my grandmother is not a big baker, by which I mean she really doesn't bake very much at all. She is a huge savory cook, and obviously her salad dressing is one of all of our favorites, her famous eggless Caesar salad. But I have a feeling that if she were gonna bake, this is one that she would actually really enjoy because it's so easy, and there's measurements. Pretty much only the flour and the leaveners, the baking soda, baking powder need to be measured. Everything else is kind of like fun and do it to your taste level. So into the flour, I'm gonna add some cinnamon, a big 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, more if you like cinnamon a lot. Same with ground ginger. I kind of try to keep these 2 in tandem with each other to balance it out. Some allspice, some nutmeg, and then my queen of spices, my cardamom. And then I have some baking powder and baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of each of those, into our dry mix. Don't let any get left behind. And then also a little pinch of kosher salt. Call it a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And give that a quick whisk together just to distribute everything into your flour. Next up, I am going to blend together our butter and sugar. So a 1 stick of softened unsalted butter here. And now I'm gonna add 2/3 of a cup packed dark brown sugar. This is not the only sweetener going into your gingerbread cake, so don't worry if you were worried. You want a packed 2/3 of a cup, so here's your first third, and then it holds together so nicely because of the molasses content already in dark brown sugar, and we'll just augment that flavor, that kind of rich, almost like mineral sweetness of molasses with some actual molasses. There is lots of spice coming into this cake, so you definitely need to balance it with the right amount of sweetness, which this will be. And then we're just gonna beat these together till they're nice and soft and creamy, a little bit fluffy, about 3 minutes. So our butter and brown sugar are lovely and blended together. I'm just gonna quickly scrape down the bowl, make sure all that butter and sugar is available to be incorporated into our batter. And then I will add in 2 room temperature eggs. 1 and 2. And just give those a quick beating as well. Okay, so you can see how nice and light and creamy the eggs made the batter. I beat it at least 20-30 seconds because you do really want the eggs to provide that kind of body to the cake that's gonna give it nice, it gives it nice flavor, but it also just gives it nice form. You pour yourself your 1 cup of molasses in. So sticky and sweet, but malty. It has like that minerality to it, a slight bitterness to it, so it keeps this a very adult cake. If you're feeling greedy, just go ahead and scrape it out. So, because look, there's a decent amount left behind in the cup. And then give this a quick blend. And that's just until it's incorporated. We'll scrape the bowl down, and then we're going to add some fresh ginger in here. So for the fresh ginger, we want about 1 inch of peeled, grated, fresh, peppery, herbaceous ginger. So I went for like the center of the knob and tried to get a really fresh, very bright, sort of moist and hydrated looking yellow interior here. Sometimes you have to crack a little piece off at the edge to see if it's totally dried out, in which case you're going to have very minimal flavor. I wanted a bright, fresh, nice little knob like this one. And I'm just using a spoon just to easily peel away this soft skin on the surface. And then I'm going to grab my microplane and grate it in. And remember, we also have the dry ginger inside, so it is really coming for you. And just stir those together. And the final step to ensure this gingerbread cake is ultra moist and stays that way with a really tender crumb that just basically melts in your mouth, even before you pour cream over top, is to add a cup of recently boiled water. And at this point, you could absolutely still use the mixer, but I've already put it away. So you just kind of want to temper it in at first because you do have those raw eggs in this portion of the batter. And then once it's all sort of at the same degree of heat, you can add the rest in and give that a quick stir. And it looks super wet right now, but do not be alarmed. That is the trick to making sure that your cake has plenty of moisture as it bakes to really maintain that lightness and tenderness and moistness. And now we're just going to add our wet mix into our dry, like so. And I'll just quickly incorporate the rest of those dry ingredients into the wet, making sure we have a gorgeous, smooth batter. In a perfect world, I would have added my dry into my wet, combined those two, and then added the hot water, just because it makes it less likely that you'll cook the eggs because there's more volume that you're distributing the hot water into. And it makes it less likely that you will have clumps because it's easier to mix a smaller volume of dry and wet together first. But we didn't do it that way, and it's still fine. Like I said, hopefully very easy, virtually fail-proof warm gingerbread cake recipe. I have a 9x9 cake pan here and just the remnants of my butter stick. And I'll just use that to grease the sides of our cake form, working especially into the corners because that is what will give you grief if you've baked a gorgeous, warm, fragrant, spicy gingerbread and then you haven't greased your dish properly and it doesn't release, and then it's messy but still delicious. I'm going to steal a little bit more just to really push into those corners. And then to go the extra layer of protection against sticking cake, I'm going to create a little liftable carriage of parchment paper, which is just helpful in case, this is a really dense, moist cake, in case for some reason it decides to be difficult. So all I want to do is sort of trim this to the width of my pan and just sort of press it into the form here, leaving a little bit of an overhang. If you want to, you can either grease this side also or simply flip it over. And then now that you've pressed it into the buttered side, it has its own nice little bit of greasing on the surface. So you can just move it right along. We have our prepared cake pan, and I'm just going to pour in our batter. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven until this smells like a little gingerbread workshop. While the cake is baking away, getting ready to release its epic ginger fantasy into this kitchen, we are going to make a creme anglaise, which is essentially a pourable custard. It has egg yolks and sugar and milk cooked together until it thickens just slightly, so it really becomes this just luscious coating to anoint your dessert with. It also happens to be the base of ice cream. So if you don't feel like going through this process, you literally can melt a pint of vanilla ice cream and get yourself to exactly the same place. Or you can just skip this process entirely and just warm some heavy cream to pour over your gingerbread, because my goal here is I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar to the mix, but I'm trying not to make it that sweet actually because the cake has its own wonderful flavor. I'm not trying to cloud that out. The point is just to add like a little extra richness into the cake as you enjoy and soften it and just like really make it as comforting as possible. What I have here is a vanilla bean. Smells so good. Run a butter knife along the length of the pod to split it in half. And what you'll see comes out are the flecks of vanilla bean that you've probably seen in vanilla bean ice cream before. Occasionally, I will actually put this in cookies when I really want that like amazing vanilla flavor, because that is just pure vanilla divineness right there. Okay, leave it there for 1 sec. What I have here is half a cup of heavy cream, half a cup of whole milk, and I am pouring it into a small saucepan and set it over a medium-low heat. We are going to bring this up to a simmer. We don't want to boil milk because you'll risk scalding it and making that horrible film on top. Into the milk, I'm going to add our vanilla bean and also our pod so that we soak up maximum essence, get off all those last little beans. Opening it up like this is also going to, of course, give you more surface area to have the milk access the vanilla pod, so you'll have a maximum flavor infusion. And of course, without a vanilla pod, you can definitely add vanilla extract. All we're gonna do here is bring it up to a simmer and let that beautiful vanilla essence infuse the milk. We're whisking just to make sure it's evenly heating and also to help distribute that vanilla and force the extraction of the vanilla flavor from every little part of the vanilla bean. And you don't need to go wild. We're not making like whipped cream here, just stir. Oh yeah, here we go. We've got a beautiful, nice little simmer situation happening here. Remember, we don't want it to boil. We do want it warm and cozy. And now we're gonna use this warm milk to temper 3 egg yolks. So what that means is you just wanna bring the egg yolks up to the same temperature as your cooking liquid slowly, so that then when you add them together completely, they don't cook the eggs by accident. So we're just gonna add in like a little splash of your warm milk just to heat those egg yolks slowly. And it is important to whisk the whole time to distribute that heat so you don't accidentally cook those egg yolks. And now that the egg yolks are themselves really warm, we can go ahead and add them into the hot milk without risking shocking them. And then return to the stove and continue whisking until this mix thickens up nicely. At this point, I do want to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. Again, not a ton of sweetness here, just a little bit, and to help give the sauce body. Okay, and here we are, whisking again. So I still have the vanilla bean pod in at this point. You can definitely take it out now, but I like to leave it in so it soaks up into the sauce as much as possible, all that great vanilla flavor. Just remember to pull it out before you serve the sauce. The gingerbread has happened. I am smelling so much ginger blooming in this kitchen. It is spiced and fragrant and so holiday. Let's check on it. Come see. Ready? Oh, you're kidding me. My grandmother is going to be so happy. So happy. Let's check and make sure that it is springy and beautifully cooked. Oh, nope. It needs a little minute more. I see it in the center. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do your thing. Okay, check back in like a minute. Okay, we're going to check and see how tender our cake is and if it is cooked completely. Going to the center. Oh yeah, fabulous. Perfectly done. And exactly on that 30-minute mark. I let the cake cool in the tin for a couple minutes. Now I'm just going to gently lift it out onto a cooling rack and let it cool completely. Then we can serve it up with our now cooled, perfectly thickened creme anglaise. Oh my gosh. The like toasted sugar, molasses, caramelly notes that are happening right now are out of control. And I think you can probably peek in here at how tender and soft this creme is here at the corner even. Beautifully soft. Oh, that just fell right off. It's really good. But I'm going to reserve judgment for the full bite. Just let it cool for a second. Okay, it's cool enough. I am dying over this right now. I just took the tiniest little morsel taste right here. It is so pillowy and just divinely moist and so gingery, guys. Like just spiced wonder happening here. And check out how nice and thickened our custard has become. I'm so excited. So while it is still gently warm, go ahead and slice yourself off a perfectly tender piece. Check out that crumb. And now let's spoon over our vanilla creme anglaise. Just to soak into that crumb. Naughty, naughty. Not naughty at all. Perfect. Healing gingerbread cake. That's what we're calling this. It just heals all the woes. Oh my goodness. I mean, I hate that I'm the one to taste the food that I make, because then you have to take my word for it. But you should take my word for it. This is the most delicious gingerbread cake I have ever had in my life. It is spiced but balanced. It is so warm and tender. It is literally melting in my mouth. And it would have done that all on its own, but then we added that silky, creamy vanilla creme anglaise, and it is nothing short of holiday splendor. I mean, the only problem with this cake is that it goes down way too easy. Pro tip is that the corners get extra caramelized. Not even crisp, just like candy coated almost. I cannot wait for my grandmother to try this. I hope she loves it. I hope you love it. I hope you make it all holiday season long. It's a cake that creates a cozy moment. So go curl up, get your mug of tea or coffee or whatever floats your boat, and enjoy some warm gingerbread cake with creme anglaise. I know I will.